A lot of webcomics are gorgeous, and especially these days, there's a lot more professionalism, etc., in that space. However, a single person can start doing a comic and it is not at the professional level, and that's okay because we want to talk about those too. My name is Ayumi, and this is Maho Shoujo Manga Monday, the series where I introduce one of the many magical girl comics currently in serialization in Japan. Now, this one technically is on a break, but I did want to point out and observe Magical Lyrical Drop Girls before it got its official remake, which has been announced. Not only is it clearly done completely by one person, but we don't actually know who does this comic because they don't have an official name. They publish under the name Guest on Nico Nico Manga, which is where I read it. You can just publish a comic there. I love that because we get, more eyes on indie comics that way. And I have talked about other Nico Nico Manga indie comics in this series before. The author has self-proclaimed that this is intended to be a shonen manga style magical girl manga. We have the start with three magical girls. There's Momoné, there's Hodan, and Himawari. There's actually apparently at least about 80 magical girls in the whole world in this universe, but so far in the story, we only have three to focus on. Momoné is our main character. At the start of the series, she hasn't become a magical girl yet. She's just a high schooler who is really shy and has this image of herself that doesn't quite match up with reality. And also, she really wants to, kind of befriend her childhood friend Akané as well. And then one day after school, she gets confronted by Nerider, this fairy who is very fun, and I have like a million screenshots of this baby on my phone now. But he is interesting because he is being a magical girl fairy for the first time. So he's also learning the ropes of how to find a girl, how to help her with becoming a magical girl, because he kind of messes up at first by not explaining everything. Not because he's trying to trick her or anything, but because he doesn't really understand that that's even necessary. He kind of had this image in his head that everything would just kind of come naturally to Momoné, but at the start of the series, she's actually really, really struggling, even with training from Erdan, who is like very skilled, in order to try to defeat even the simplest of monsters. So she's very frustrated, and then that also makes Nerider very frustrated. We're only 12 chapters in, and the primary part of this story is the relationship between Momoné and Nerider. I think it's really interesting how their relationship kind of also ends up helping Momoné to really truly awaken her actual powers. There's certainly a lot of mystery still with the world. We also get to have some time to get to know the villains as well. So this comic started last year and has been in serialization up until February, and then in March, the author announced that they plan to kind of basically restart the story, which is very classic webcomic scenario, and kind of start to rework things. So I don't know if that means that they're going to completely start republishing. They did end up also publishing a chapter of a completely new comic that has absolutely no magic in it. So that's interesting to see that they're doing that, but hopefully they will get back to this story because it is interesting so far. I personally really do appreciate that even an amateur can have the space to get some fans and make an interesting story. I still have a lot of questions, so I really hope that they get back to this story. You can read Magical Lyrical Drop Girls over on Nico Nico Manga. This is very much an independent amateur series with not a lot of readers, but because of that, there is almost certainly no English translation in the works as well. There's certainly a certain level to the quality of even the way the lettering is done that tells me they're probably not working on that either. And that's okay, but unfortunately, that doesn't mean that you have to know Japanese to check this out. Anyways, that's all for this episode of Maho Shoujo Manga Monday. If you have any suggestions for what comic you want to hear me talk about in the future, feel free to let me know in the comments. I am looking forward to doing a kind of half-year roundup in episode 26, where we review all of the past episodes I've covered, because some of those comics have finished, some of those comics have had twists and turns, and I do want to review them. Also, if you would like to help support me in reading all the comics in the world, because as much as I can make time to read them, I also need money to read them all, I have a Ko-fi and a Throne page where you can send me your moolah. I would appreciate it a lot, even just a few bucks to help me read a handful of chapters of a webcomic would make a huge difference so that I can read all the things and then I can actually talk about them. I will see you next Monday to talk about another Magical Girl comic. Okay, bye!